But from the time of what is called the Tikliamish civilization until now, those beings, especially the contemporary ones, chiefly became learned, who learned by rote as much as possible about every kind of vacuous information, such as old women love to relate about what was presumably said in olden times. Note, by the way, that for the definition of the importance of the learned there, our venerated Mullah Nasruddin also has a sentence expressed in the following words. Everybody talks as if our learned know that half 100 is 50. There on your planet, the more of such information one of your favorites mechanically learns by rote, information he himself has never verified, and which moreover he has never sensed, the more learned he is considered to be. And so, my boy, we reached the city of Babylon. There were, indeed, a great many learned beings there gathered from almost the whole of that planet of yours. As the causes of the gathering of these beings in the city of Babylon at that time are extremely interesting, I will tell you about this a little more in detail. The point is that most of the learned beings of the earth had been then assembled there under compulsion by a most peculiar Persian king, under whose dominion at that period was also the city of Babylon. In order to understand thoroughly which fundamental aspect ensuing from the total results of the abnormally established conditions of ordinary being existence there gave rise to the said peculiarity of this Persian king, I must first enlighten you in respect of two facts which had become fixed long before. The first fact is that almost from the time of the loss of the continent Atlantis, there gradually began to be crystallized, and during later centuries became completely crystallized in the presence of every one of your favorites there, a particular inherency, thanks to which that being sensation which is called happiness for one's being, which is experienced from time to time by every three-brained being from the satisfaction of his inner self evaluation, appears in the presences of your favorites exclusively only when they acquire for their own possession a great deal of that popular metal there called gold. A greater misfortune for them arising from this particular inherency in their common presences is that the mentioned sensation due to the possession of the said metal is strengthened by the beings around the possessor, and also by beings who learn about it only by what is called hearsay, and have not themselves been convinced by personal corresponding perceptions. And it is, moreover, the established custom there never to consider through which kind of being manifestations he becomes the possessor of a great quantity of this metal. And such a being there becomes for all those around him one who evokes in their presences the functioning of that crystallized consequence of the property of the organ Kundabuffer called envy. And the second fact is this, that when in the presences of your favorites their chief particularity functions crescendently, and according to the established custom among their different communities, the process of the reciprocal destruction of each other's existence proceeds. Then afterwards, when this property, only maleficent for them themselves, has run its course, and they temporarily cease these processes of theirs, then the king of that community in which a greater number of subjects survive, receiving the title of conqueror, usually takes for himself everything belonging to the beings of the conquered community. Such a king-conqueror there usually orders his subjects to take from the conquered all their lands, all the young beings of female sex present in the conquered community, and all the what is called riches accumulated by them during centuries, And so, my boy, when the subjects of that said peculiar Persian king conquered the beings of another community, he ordered them not to take and even not to touch any of these, but to take with them, as what are called captives, only the learned beings of this conquered community. Clearly to represent and to substantiate in yourself the understanding just why such a peculiar craze arose in the individuality of that Persian king, and became proper only to him, you must know that at that period of the Tikliamish civilization in the town called Chiklaral, a three-brained learned being by name Hornahum, whose essence later became crystallized into what is called an eternal Hasnamussian individual, invented that any old metal you like, abundant on the surface of that planet, could easily be turned into the rare metal gold. And all it was necessary to know for this was just one very small secret. This maleficent fiction of his became widely spread there, and having become crystallized in the presences of the beings of that time, and being transmitted by inheritance from generation to generation, began to pass to the beings of subsequent generations as a gradually formed, definite, maleficent, fantastic science there, under the name of alchemy. Under the name, that is, of the great science which had indeed existed there during epochs long past, when, in the presences of their ancestors, the consequences of the properties of the organ Kundabuffer had not yet been quite crystallized, and which branch of genuine knowledge might be necessary and indeed useful for the three-brained beings there, even of contemporary times. And as at that period to which my tale relates, this Persian king needed, for some or other of his undoubtedly Hasnamussian aims, a great deal of this metal, rare on the surface of the earth, called gold, and as the notion concerning this method that had been invented by the then existing Hasnamussian individual Harnahum had also reached his presence, he was eager to get gold by so easy a means. When this Persian king had finally decided to get gold by alchemy, he then and there for the first time cognized with the whole of his being that he did not as yet know that little secret, without which it was absolutely impossible to fulfill this desire of his. So he then pondered how to find out that little secret. The result of this pondering was that he became aware of the following. As the learned already have knowledge of every other kind of mystery, then this mystery must also be known to one of them. Having finally arrived at such a conclusion, he, with an intensified functioning of being astonishment at why such a simple idea had never entered his head before, called several of his attendant subjects and ordered them to find out which of the learned beings of his capital knew this mystery. When it was reported to him the following day that not a single one of the learned beings of the capital knew this mystery, he ordered inquiries to be made also of all the learned present among the beings of the whole of his subject community. And when, after several days, he again,